The privileges we enjoy today seem impossible sometime in the past. The medical school is in existence today because people stood up for it. Unigamsa is what it is today because people saw their path to it. I am Metaban, Information and Communication Minister of the 17th Executive Council of Unigamsa, and I present to you Unigamsa's first ever documentary that will take us through the history of the medical school and Unigamsa. Please do sit back and enjoy this beautiful piece entitled Fatum Unigamsa.
Unigamsa is home to us. Unigamsa is who we are, and we are Unigamsa.
Exception about Unigamsa is the fact that Unigamsa is the most important association we can have in the whole of the University of the Gambia.
And the issue of electives that was not around it as a result of Unigamsa being in existence, that it has been returned.
So, as an international student, I was welcomed with an open arm, and it was very easy for me to mingle, and it was very easy for me to associate with students from all corners of the world.
My second year, I was in a committee. My third year, I was an executive member. In my fourth year, I was in a committee. In my fifth year, I was in a committee. In my sixth year, I was in a committee. And even in my final year, I was in a committee. So
people only come together and form associations when there's a need and there's a common need.
The point of us starting it was at the inception. So resources were quite finite, so we were limited in what could actually be done.
That even if he was going to sell his last gown, he was going to make sure that we graduate as medical doctors.
Unigamsa started around 2004. So it was during our community medicine rotation, that's the second cohort of the medical school, the second group of the medical school. At that time, the medical school had only 4 cohorts. Then we and the nurses, public health, we were all together. So it was during our community medicine rotation around February at Kunjur, when we came together, about 5 of us. It was Dr. Jabang, Dr. Bajan, Dr. Silla, Dr. Lee, 6 of us, and Dr. Ali Sen and myself. So when we were there, then also there was Siddharth Gomez, 7 of us, Siddharth Gomez. So he is late now. May his soul rest in perfect peace. So 7 of us, when we were at Kunju during our rotation, brainstorming, then this idea came that why not we organize ourselves as an association, knowing that there are other medical student associations in the world, and also knowing that we had a common associations in the country. That was METSA, Medical and Health Student Association. So after that brainstorming, with all the energy in us at that time, we agreed that we would form it. So, but before that, the year before that, I was in the University of the Gambia. I was the vice president of the University of the Gambia Students' Union. I was representing the students' unions at the University Senate. So then I had a lot of ideas on how the university was running, knowing that without organizing ourselves better, there's no way we can thrive as a student body. So then we agreed that we would form it, and then the impetus behind that was the need at that time. Because looking at it up to now, the majority of the expenditure it's in the medical school. If you look at the whole university, 3/4 of the expenditure in the university is from the medical school. So the medical school, it's like that. So knowing that, we felt we really have to organize ourselves. So that when we came back, then we continued brainstorm. How do we do it? Then we said, okay, we'll form a constitution, we'll form a steering committee, and then the steering committee will then be mandated to implement, to go through the formation of Unigamsa. So then the first group we formed was the Constitutional Setup Committee. The members of that committee at that time, this was in 2004, was Dr. Bajan, Dr. Saad, she's in UK now. Then we have Dr. Makalo, who is a pediatrician now. Then the Gabriel, who is infectious disease expert and a physician, and then myself. So at that time, I was mandated, I was the chair of that committee. So then we were selected to a congress, extraordinary congress that we called everybody. So we were 4 cohorts, first, second, third, fourth. So the first cohort excluded themselves because they thought that would have brought a division in the medical school, that we would have alienated the nursing and the public health group. So they did not take part. So through the second, third, fourth, we came together. So we were selected to form the constitution. So after getting the constitution ready, we went back to that congress. We presented everything chapter by chapter. Then it was approved. Then we set up another committee again called steering committee. So then this steering committee was given 1 year mandate to register all the members of UNIGAMSA, to get a logo for UNIGAMSA, do elections, also in a new executive. So there too, I was elected to be the chair of that committee, and the members of that committee were Dr. Baji, and then who is in Australia right now, Dr. Sa, Dr. Gabriel Dao, and then we had Dr. Buli Kamara, who eventually became the 3rd president of UNIGAMSA, and then myself. So we constituted this steering committee. Then also within that framework, we also had a mandate to form ad hoc committees as and whenever necessary in the implementation of all our activities. So we ran this thing within 1 year. We registered all the members. I remember my number has been 001 because at that time when we started registration as the chair, then I had that honor to be. And then we then registered all the members of UNIGAMSA at that time. Then because I was from the university, as the vice president of the University of the Gambia was responsible for registering all the associations in the university. Was in our constitution. Knowing that quickly, I registered UNIGAMSA under the University of the Gambia Student Union. Because of that, the UNIGAMSA became the first association in the University of the Gambia. So that registration happened. Then we went around to look for donation because we needed to implement UNIGAMSA. We needed to integrate. Integrating something new needed money. So we went around. I remember we went to Westfield Clinic. We met Dr. Larry Peters. May his soul rest in peace, blessed memory. He was very happy with what we wanted to do. He gave us, I think, about $15,000 check and a small car. Then when we came back, then we gave the car to the medical school because the medical school, they were struggling with transport. And then we had that. And then for the logo, so the way the committee went with to get the logo, we now brainstormed. We did like a competition. One of the students, Dr. Usman Jaju now, he was Usman Jaju. He is working in the MRC, he's a doctor in the MRC. He's very good with freehand sketch. So he drew the tree because we wanted a tree with stethoscopes, like how the logo of medicine is. We added tree because we are from this region, and then most of our treatment is from the trees. Our people are fond of using leaves and other things, so we brought tree. That's how the tree came about. Stethoscope, we want to bring the tree, that's traditional treatment, with the conventional treatment together, because that's our origin. So that's how that tree came about. So then we had a tree with stethoscope intertwining like snake, the way the snake is on the oath. So then I took that sketch to Lenihan Society, then met this man we call it farms. He looked at it, he was very good in drawing. He drew it and colored it. So I used that, scanned it, then that became our logo. So then we went on, then we went now to the implementation phase. That's elections. So we conducted elections. So we formed another ad hoc committee to help us with the elections. So within these people, like Dr. Bully, we wanted him to be the secretary or to take part in the association. We all the people we thought at that time could have been very good in the executive. We removed them from the steering committee. We incorporated other people. We formed other ad hoc groups, welfare groups to help us do the elections, also implement the integration. So we formed the IEC. Then I was the chair. As the chair of the steering committee, automatically I was the chair of the IEC. So then we conducted the elections. After conducting the elections, Dr. Jabang was unopposed. He became the president. Then Dr. Silla became the secretary. Dr. Bajan became the PRO, and then Dr. Buli Kamara became the assistant secretary. And then we have Dr. Makalo, and then all in the executive. So within the executive, all the three cohorts were all part of the executive. But while all this thing was going on, the first cohort still abstained from taking part in UNICAMSA. The reason being, they felt they were the first group, they were one of the main pioneers. So they felt that forming UNICAMSA would bring divisions in the University of the Gambia Medical School, in that the nurses probably would be sidelined. So because of that, they said no, they will not be part. So they were never part of UNICAMSA until today. So then we continued with our struggle to form UNICAMSA, because we believed at that time, but the only way we can progress as a medical school, as a medical student, is to take up all the responsibilities, everything by the bull, and make sure it happens. So, and then a lot of feathers were scratched while we are doing that, but those things you can't avoid. Then we did the elections, done with the elections, and then the next thing we did after the election was to inaugurate UNICAMSA. Like when you have a child, you need to name a child, and then you need to make a naming ceremony, christening ceremony. So that's what we did. We inaugurated UNICAMSA to tell everybody UNICAMSA is here, is formed. It's a legitimate association within the University of the Gambia framework. Is here to support medical students, to make sure medical students' welfare are looking after, to make sure the medical school at that time struggling with accreditation is accredited, and so that the medical school can stand against any medical school in the world. So that we, the product who are there, we will not be half-baked. We will not be doctors who are under-trained. We want to be well-trained doctors to match any doctor, any medical student in the world. These were the things, that filled our head at that time. So at the point, in fact, we went ahead to meet the medical school authority on accreditation. At the point, something happened that looked like a strike. A strike took place in the medical school, all because of that UNICAMSA. And then but because of that, the University of the Gambia sat up, and then a lot of things happened. They brought materials, they brought lecturers, because of all those things we did. And then we organized the inaugurations. Then at the inauguration ceremony, I chaired as the chair of the steering committee. Then they swore the executive, Dr. Jabang and his team. Then they came on board and they invited Dr. Samate. I remember he was a doctor in the hospital. He was Dr. Samate. He was at that time, I think, a medical officer. And then we invited other doctors, including Dr. Jan. They all came. We invited a lot of people. So it was a well-attended ceremony at the School of Nursing at their hall. So we organized. It was very successful. Then we handed over, at that time we have also opened a bank account. We handed over about $30,000, and then in our account. We had an album, about 3 albums. We handed over the constitution, the logo, and then those were some of the things we handed over. And I remember Dr. Jabang making a statement saying that we had given them an escape velocity. That's the only thing they need to do now is to sit up and continue the work that had already begun. So this is what happened at that time. But after the first executive, I became dormant. I withdrew from most of the activities to give them chance to do their thing so that I will not be influencing their activities.
Yeah, you can start. Hello, my name is Dr. John N. Jaba. I am a senior neurosurgery consultant at Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. And I'm also currently, as for the date of this interview, the head of Department of Surgery of Edward Francis Small Teaching Hospital. I happen to be, with relevance to this very interview, the first president of the University of the Gambia Medical Students Association, acronym UNIGAMSA. And I'm here to give some insight into some questions, as have been alluded by my colleagues, about UNIGAMSA, about the challenges that we had at the time, and also about the relationship that existed between UNIGAMSA and the management, the administration, yes, amongst others. So to start with, I just want to give a small backdrop, and I'm sure my colleagues have said that, and it's just to emphasize the point. The people only come together and form associations when there's a need and there's a common need. The University of the Gambia, which started through its medical school, of course started with a lot of challenges, and there were so many things that were in need and that could be helpful to the medical student. So as part of the challenges that we had then was, of course, the lack of books and reading materials. So from the second cohort downwards, most people would not have books, and as a result, there was a need, to see how best we can help ourselves. So one of the reasons that made us need to come up with UNIGAMSA as a medical student association was that we realized that there were a lot of challenges for the medical school. And part of it, like I said, was one, there are no books, we do not have books. Two, we are now talking about accreditation of the medical school. What does that mean when we finish our program without us being accredited? Three, there were a lot of opportunities like, having to collaborate and relate with other international bodies outside. And of course, during that time, I must say that what happened was there was an association which was called MEDSA. MEDSA was the Gambia Medical and Health Students Association. So it was made up of medical students, it was made up of public health students, it was also made up of nursing students, yes. But again, in our own thought, we may be wrong, we may be right, but in our own thought, we felt that MEDSA wasn't meeting the demands of the medical students. And the medical students having to spend 7 years, and their realities together with the others were different. And that was the reason why we thought that there was a need to form a University of Gambia Students, Medical Students Association. And when we formed it, we were able to achieve a lot of things during the first year. Things like we were able to get 100,000 in those days. This is about 2005. GAMCEL under their able leadership, so I can't remember his name again, but with Mr. Almamo, who was, I think, the then Mr. PRO or something. Mr. Almamo dealt we deal with Mr. Almamo quite a lot. We were able to get 100,000 dialysis from GAMCEL, and which we were able to collaborate with Mr. Jan of Timbuktu to, for the first time, buy medical textbooks for medical students to use. And that was really a very good achievement. We were also still able to collaborate with GAMCEL and 2 other executives, to be able to get lab coats that are sold, for medical students. We were able also to, collaborate with other bodies and be able to commemorate other days like the Africa Malaria Day celebration, the tuberculosis and things like that. So in a nutshell, it really helped us. And at that time, at the beginning, the University of the Gambia actually had a lot of very interesting associations, I would say. There was the Ecomansa then, which was a very strong association. And there was one that was very, very interesting, which is called the MPAC. MPAC is Movement for Positive Action and Change. And this association was able to produce newsletters, almost twice a week or within a week. But it's worth noting that UNIGAMSA, stood the test of time, and up to today, UNIGAMSA is still very, very, very active. Now, with regards to how have our relations been in those days with administration, I would say it had been one that was a very frank, first of all, I would say that way, frank and a very cordial one. As student leaders, you are in between the administration and the students. Of course, and most of the time, the demands of the students and the administration is always are not always at par. And so you as a leader are supposed to, help bridge that gap. Yes, we had a lot of times, where we had let's say arguments, would it be, as it were, not confrontation, but very strong arguments, with administration as to this is what we want, and we are not seeing this happening, or some classes, go. And at that time, it was so difficult in medical school because you don't have, the care that you have today. So today, for instance, you have a neurosurgeon, you have other people that have come, they're general surgeons. Dr. Diallo is a pediatric surgeon. You've got, those that are orthopedic surgeons. So, but those days we never had that. And so we had lecturers that kept coming from time to time. And that obviously makes it very, very difficult. So yes, we do have, a lot of challenges, and we do have moments where, we obviously have to meet management and, have a lot of, very, very, very genuine discussions with them. But by and large, our relationship with the management have been very good. Regarding the like I said earlier on, UNIGAMSA was not the first association in the University of the Gambia. There were several others, like the Ecomansa, I think, started before us. MPAC, of course, started before us. And like I said, in the School of Medicine and Allied Health Sciences, we had MEDSA, which is the Medical and Health Student Association, which obviously was there before UNIGAMSA came into being. And of course, that means that when UNIGAMSA came, they had some issues. And of course, we had some bit of bitter relations with the other schools. And people had the feeling that we have come, of course, to divide, the health, kind of the health fraternity. And because of that, there were a lot of bitter arguments, there were a lot of, bitter sentiments. But I think when I look back, I say, well, we probably knew what we wanted, and I think we went in for it. And today, UNIGAMSA have grown, like I said, to stand the test of time. And most of the other associations have been naming. Some of them are very active anymore in the university, or some of them are actually inexistent. Yeah, so I'm really very grateful to the president of the 17th Executive Council, Mr. Abubakar Ekdago, and the Ebul PRO, the name is Metaba, correct? Yeah, for really coming up with this documentary. Yes, UNIGAMSA dated way back in 2004, 2005, and since then has achieved quite a lot. And I, being the first president, I would say that most of the things we were not even able to achieve today, UNIGAMSA have achieved it. We have worked on students at that time. We don't have electives, but we had worked on electives, and now today students are able to go for electives. In fact, they've got so much. We have worked on international associations and collaborations. Today, UNIGAMSA is highly represented in IFAMSA, which is the International Federation of Medical Students Association. We have worked on, on the lecturers and things like that, where we keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And today, of course, by natural evolution, we have many lecturers, as compared to those days. And also the fact that UNIGAMSA is able to organize, seminars, is able to organize conferences, able to participate in things. Just the last thing I would say, yesterday I was teaching in one of the classes, and it was a class that I kept complaining their AC wasn't working, and by the time I went there yesterday, the AC was working. So who fixed this? And the answer was UNIGAMSA did. And that's very, very gratifying. So it just tells me and my colleagues that yes, what we stood for and what we built had actually not been in vain. Finally, I won't end the UNIGAMSA talk without mentioning the very, very person from whose mouth came this whole idea when we were in Kuju. I'm sure my colleagues have mentioned that. And I want to take special time to express our most sincere condolences to the family of the late Sidat Robin Gomez. Sidat Robin Gomez was our classmate, and he was the one on that fateful day. I think it's the 18th of April. I'm not too sure, but I will need to ask. It was the 18th of April, 2004, I think, at Farmer Bojang's house in Gwinju, around 3 a.m. in the morning, when we were all seated and talking and chatting. And it was Sidat Robin Gomez who first said, guys, don't you think we need to have a Gambia Medical Students Association? And when he said that on that day, then the debate started. And believe you me, even though I became the first president of the UNIGAMSA, but I was the doubting Thomas in that. I was the one that doubted that asked all the questions, that said, no, why we've got a Medical and Allied Health Students Association, why do we need to get a Gambia Medical Students Association, And of course, later on, like I said, I didn't become its first president, but it was courtesy of him. Today, he has not lived to witness that. Today, we talk about him in blessed memory. We remember him, and we do believe with all sincerity that wherever he is having a restful moment until when we shall meet him. So that's unfortunately the sad part of the story, but we give credit to him as being the first person to talk about UNIGAMSA.
Thank you very much, Meta. The first executive of University of the Gambia Medical Students Association served for 1 year, and then it comprises mainly the second cohort of medical students and the third cohorts. So we served for 1 year, and from there on we organized another election, and the second executive started from there on. Yes, then the positions which were available were the president, the vice president, secretary general, assistant secretary general, treasurer, and social welfare secretary, and auditor. Those were the main positions which were available then. Others which I might not have recalled, but these were the key positions which were available. And the first executive, as you might have known, John Jaba was our president, and we had Lamin Makalo as our vice president, who was in the third cohort, and I served as the first secretary general of the UNIGAMSA. And Bulli Kamara served as an assistant secretary general, whilst Dr. Abdullah Bajan served as the PRO, and Mariama Baji served as the treasurer. So Miniru Sabej was also working under Mariama Baji. Yes, there are a lot of achievements. I would not call that whether we have any setback. I know there were challenges. I would call them challenges. But the achievements was that because we have realized then that as medical students, our problems were unique to our problems. Because by then there was another association in the school called MEDSA, which comprises of medical students, nurses, and public health students. But we came to realize that we have a unique problem. And then among those unique problems was, as part of the second cohort and in the third cohort, we were unfortunate not to have some of the privileges the first cohort enjoy, like scholarships. And then those scholarships, the WHO was helping the first cohort. But the second cohort, one of our biggest challenges was lack of textbooks in the school, and then also lecturers. But for lack of textbooks, we were mostly depending on photocopying textbooks. And then some of us who were financially challenged couldn't photocopy most of those textbooks. Although the WHO lecturer, Dr. Kamara, who was lecturing anatomy, was photocopying anatomy textbooks and then bringing them, but other subjects, we couldn't photocopy them. So we made it as a priority to try to get textbooks for the school. So we work with partners like the proprietor of Afrimed, Dr. Jain, and then also we work with GAMCEL then. And through those partners, we were able to have some money which we use to buy medical textbooks from Timbuktu. And then the proprietor of Timbuktu was also very helpful in trying to give us some discount. So that was a major success. And we were able to also have a sort of a small library where we positioned those books, and then students were able to go and then get textbooks and then read them. And then another major achievement was to bring medical students under one umbrella. And then that has fostered relationships among ourselves. And then we were able to at least do a lot of things together. So the first executive more or less was bringing people together and getting textbooks. Those were the biggest priority. Whilst when the second executive took over, we now concentrated on working on getting lab coats, which were also not available. And then we worked with GAMCEL to get more lab coats and then more textbooks. So those were our biggest achievements. So the challenges here and there are many, including lack of lecturers, lack of other textbooks, and then the mobility, traveling from one end to the other to attend lectures. Those were our biggest challenges, which we coped and then we managed through. Yes, we did. The second executive was lucky to be invited to attend IFAMSA, International Federation of Medical Students Association. But this one was through their Asia Pacific Medical Students Association chapter, which we went to attend a symposium in Taiwan, Taipei. And then 4 medical students from UNGAMSA were sponsored through the then Taiwanese embassy in the Gambia, and then with the government of the Gambia to go and attend that symposium in Taiwan. And then it was a unique opportunity for us to showcase our medical school and then to also showcase our country. Many people don't know the existence of Gambia, talk less of the medical school. So we were able to at least bring to light that there is a medical school, and then through that medical school, we could get a lot of things for the country. So from there on, we were able to work on joining IFAMSA, but we went to attend that, and then 4 people went to attend that symposium in Taiwan. I was then the president, that was myself, because I was the second president of UNGAMSA. I led the delegation comprising of the then Secretary General, Bulde Kamara, and the Treasurer, Mariama Baji, and the Auditor, Minim Savage. Then the 4 of us went to Taiwan to attend the symposium, which lasted for almost about 9 days. Yeah, they should know where we have started and where we are. And then most of the achievements they are enjoying today including the lab coats, including some of the books in the library, and then were the hard work of the then UNIGAMSA. Even lecturers were then not available. So but we fought tooth and nail to make sure that there are lecturers available, and also we encourage each other to come and then lecture in the school. That's why we are having some of us lecturing in the medical school currently, because we felt that this is an obligation we had for the school. So I think the current group of students should also realize that they have an obligation for the school to come and teach. Those who will be specializing, when they specialize in any area, they should come and teach. We are lacking lecturers in the school. So they should take that one, and also they should be there for each other, support each other through these processes, because without that one, an individual success is not the success which we want. We want a collective success. So students should learn that one, and then they should participate in UNIGAM's activities, because for any association to prosper, the membership of that association must take ownership of the association, participate in their activities, pay your contributions, your union dues, and any other things which the association will be doing, you participate in it. That will encourage the executive to work harder, and knowing that they are serving people who really appreciate that the executive is serving for them.
When the association was formed, one of the first activities that we did, especially from the IPRO department, was to go out on sort of like a sensitization. So in that process, we visited the different ministries. Of course, we started with the university, the other ministries, higher education, health, and also parastatals, NGOs, and then also we even had meetings with diplomatic missions in the country. And as a result of this outreach, we had some activities that we actually were able to do with some of these organizations. For example, Council, we did some work with them, and also other organizations. So through the process, yes, UNIGAMSA actually had acclaim both within the university and also across the country. It's with the institutions that we collaborated with. So basically, I served as the IPRO for both the first and the second executive council. Well, the activities we engaged with, we did quite a number of sensitization. We selected certain communities where we did sensitization on HIV, because then at that point, the National AIDS Secretariat, which was one of the organizations we actually collaborated, was involved in a lot of sensitization activity at that point. So we did a lot of sensitization work with them. So in addition, of course, we engaged within the university community also. We did health talks. At the point of us starting, it was at the inception. So resources were quite finite, so we were limited in what could actually be done. But we did a lot of sensitization work within the university student community and also outside in the local community. So we targeted certain communities like Gunjuru, where we had something like a 2-week activity in which we did health talks on HIV, on tuberculosis, and also on simple things like nutrition, breastfeeding, and so on. Okay, so when we were starting, actually, of course, not everyone had smartphones at that time, and most of these apps were not being used also during that time. So the main ways of communicating actually was usually through our messages. The good thing, however, was that at that time, most of the students were also residing within the campus of the School of Nursing, so access was not really difficult. So, and also there was a resource center that was set up. So, in terms of communication, text messaging was used regularly by the IPRO and also the Secretary General. In addition, we would also post our notice on the notice board for students to know. And we organize regular congresses also. We would have at least 2 or 3 congresses in the year. And finally, we published a newsletter, although it was only produced annually. But we had a newsletter that was called the Internis, that basically summarize the activities of the association as it was then. So these were the main ways that we were communicating. So mainly it was through text messaging, producing posters, and of course word of mouth, since most of the students were accessible. Yeah, so just to, UNIGAMSA was formed for a purpose. The university when we were starting was really, I'm sure students are saying things are challenging now, but it was even worse then. There are a lot of resources that were not available. So the whole point of forming UNIGAMSA was to create an enabling environment for the students. And some of the achievements we had was that we were able to, through our contacts with this organization, for example, GAMCEL that I mentioned, we were able to procure textbooks and had a mini library that was used by the students. And also we talked about the resource center that we had, which we were helped by what's his name again, Dr. Janya at AfriMed. So at the point that UNIGAMSA was coming, it was a very crucial organization. We actually able to stand here today and say that we actually helped a lot of students at that point in time. So that was a very important